Procrastination is one of the most deceptive barriers to success. It doesn't always show up as laziness. It often wears the disguise of planning, perfectionism, or waiting for the right time. But Jim Rohn would say, without a sense of urgency, desire loses its value. That means you can want something deeply, even dream about it constantly. But if you keep postponing action, those dreams begin to fade into frustration. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is closed by action, not intention. What makes procrastination so dangerous is how quietly it creeps in. One missed opportunity here, one delayed decision there, and before long, you're living in a pattern of hesitation. And while you're waiting, life keeps moving. The market keeps evolving. The clock keeps ticking. Success doesn't slow down to wait for you to get ready. It rewards the person who's in motion, the person who decides, I may not be perfect, but I'm moving forward. Procrastination often stems from fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. But the truth is, you can't improve something you haven't started. Progress never happens in pause. If you're waiting until you feel completely confident before you act, you'll be waiting forever. Confidence is a byproduct of doing. The first time might be awkward, it might even be a mess, but that's where growth begins. Jim Rohn would say, start from wherever you are with whatever you've got. Don't wait to get good. Get going, and the good will come. Another reason people procrastinate is because they confuse movement with progress. They're busy but not effective. They spend time researching, organizing, but never pulling the trigger. Preparation is good, but at some point preparation becomes a stall tactic. It becomes another way to avoid the risk of doing. Success comes from execution. A half-baked plan carried out with boldness often beats the perfect plan that never leaves the notebook. It's important to recognize that every day you procrastinate, you pay a price. You delay your goals, you diminish your momentum, and you train your mind to tolerate mediocrity. And over time, that compounds. You look back and realize that a week turned into a month into a year, and your dreams are still sitting on the shelf. Time doesn't ask for permission. It just keeps moving, and if you want to succeed, you've got to move with it. Now, breaking the habit of procrastination isn't about a giant leap. It's about small, consistent steps. Set a timer for 15 minutes and work on the thing you've been avoiding. Commit to just starting. Action fuels motivation, not the other way around. The more you move, the more energy you'll generate, and that energy turns into momentum. Momentum is a powerful force. It makes it easier to keep going once you've begun. Accountability helps too. Tell someone what you're working on. Set a deadline. Create pressure, not stress, but structure. Pressure sharpens focus and speeds up decision making. Without it, it's too easy to drift. Jim Rohn used to say, we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts much longer. When you eliminate procrastination, you unlock a sense of control over your life. You begin to trust yourself. You say you'll do something and you do it. That builds integrity. And integrity over time turns into self-respect. Every small win matters. Every task completed builds your identity as a doer, not a dreamer. And once that identity is in place, procrastination loses its grip. You don't need perfect conditions to start. You just need to start. That's where real progress begins. Blame is the great thief of potential. It quietly steals your power while offering you the illusion of comfort. Jim Rohn used to say, the day you graduate from childhood to adulthood is the day you take full responsibility for your life. And he was right. As long as you blame other people, the economy, the weather, your upbringing, or your boss, you give away the steering wheel of your life. You let outside forces dictate your direction, and that's no way to build success. Responsibility is empowering. It puts the future back in your hands. Blame says, it's not my fault, while responsibility says, maybe it's not all my fault, but it is my future. There's a big difference between fault and responsibility. You may not be responsible for what happened to you, but you're responsible for how you respond. You may not have chosen your starting point, but you do choose your direction. Taking responsibility means you stop waiting for someone to come rescue you and realize no one's coming. You are the one. One of the reasons people blame is because it's easier than changing. Blame shifts attention away from effort. It says, I'm stuck because of them, instead of asking, what can I do? But real change doesn't happen until you turn the mirror inward, until you say, if things are going to get better, I have to get better. That mindset changes everything, because now you're not a victim of your past, you're a student of it. And students learn, grow, and improve. Blame also delays progress. While you're busy pointing fingers, you're not building anything. You're not developing new skills, making new decisions, or taking new actions. Blame is a stall tactic. It lets you feel right without moving forward. But the price is steep. Every moment spent in blame is a moment stolen from your own growth. Jim Rohn said, don't borrow someone else's plan, develop your own. And in the same way, don't borrow someone else's excuses. Take the pen back and write your own next chapter. Now, this doesn't mean being hard on yourself. Taking responsibility isn't about guilt or self-blame. It's about power. It's about looking at every area of your life, your finances, your health, your relationships, and asking, where am I in control? What can I improve? What can I learn from this? That's where growth begins. That's where real transformation takes root. When you take ownership, you stop waiting. Waiting for the right timing, waiting for support, waiting for someone to hand you the green light. You don't need permission to begin, you only need a decision. And that decision, to own your choices, is one of the most liberating you'll ever make. Because once you own the problem, you also own the solution. Another benefit of taking full responsibility is that it builds credibility with yourself. When you blame, you weaken your self-trust. You tell yourself, I'm not in control. But when you accept responsibility, you send a different message. I can handle this. I've got what it takes. That confidence multiplies. You begin to trust your judgment more. You develop resilience. You become someone who responds, adapts, and grows. That kind of person becomes unstoppable over time. Jim Rohn taught that success is something you attract by the person you become. And becoming that kind of person starts with responsibility. You can't grow what you don't own. So the sooner you stop blaming, the sooner you start building. Building habits, building character, building a future that reflects your decisions, not your excuses. That's how success becomes not just possible, but predictable. The people you surround yourself with shape the direction of your life more than most realize. Jim Rohn famously said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a fundamental truth about human behavior. We become like those we associate with, not because we're weak, but because we're human. Attitudes are contagious. Habits are contagious. Energy is contagious. And if you're not intentional about your circle could be holding you back. Think about it. If you spend your time around people who complain all the time, criticize others, avoid responsibility, and coast through life, how long do you think it'll take before you begin to echo those same behaviors? Not long. Because your standards start to bend. You start justifying things you once rejected. You begin tolerating things you used to challenge, and slowly, without even noticing, you start lowering your own bar. On the flip side, if you spend time around people who are positive, driven, disciplined, and focused on growth, you're lifted just by being in their presence. Their mindset challenges your own. Their ambition inspires you. Their discipline reminds you of what's possible. That's the power of proximity. You don't have to copy anyone, but being around the right people can wake up parts of you that have been asleep for years. Now, this isn't about cutting off every friend who's struggling or making a list of who's worthy to be in your life. It's about recognizing influence. Everyone influences you in some way. The key is to be aware of which influences are lifting you and which are quietly limiting you. Sometimes it's not dramatic, it's subtle. A sarcastic comment here, a dismissive attitude there. But over time, those little moments can plant seeds of doubt, distraction, and fear. Jim Rohn would encourage you to stand guard at the door of your mind. That means being selective about who gets access to your time, your thoughts, your energy, because those things are your greatest assets. You can't grow in an environment that doesn't support growth. You can't build confidence when surrounded by voices that constantly tear things down. And you can't build a vision when everyone around you lives in excuses. It's also important to understand that not everyone grows at the same pace. Some people are in your life for a season, and that's okay. Growth often requires separation, not out of pride, but out of necessity. You don't have to judge others to make space for your own progress. Sometimes you simply outgrow conversations, environments, or habits. And when that happens, it's not a loss, it's a signal, a sign that it's time to level up your environment to match your goals. And that's why intentional association is so powerful. Seek out people who are ahead of you in some area of life, financially, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Ask questions. Watch how they carry themselves. Notice how they think, how they react, how they plan. You don't need to imitate them, but by observing, you gain insights that can shave years off your learning curve. Mentors matter, role models matter. Even books and recordings can serve as powerful associations. Jim Rohn said, "Miss a meal, but not your reading," because reading puts you in the company of wise minds. Listening to audio programs or attending seminars can introduce you to people whose energy and thinking recalibrate your own. You might not be able to sit across the table from someone you admire, but you can still learn from them. So take a hard look at your associations. Are they pushing you forward or pulling you back? Are they challenging you or enabling your comfort zone? The direction of your life will often match the direction of your circle. Choose it with intention, because who you're becoming tomorrow is being shaped by who you're around today. Excuses are the easy exit signs off the road to success. They're comforting, they're convenient, and they're dangerous. Jim Rohn once said, "If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse." That's the dividing line between those who grow and those who stay stuck. It's not talent, it's not timing. It's whether or not you've trained yourself to trade your excuses for effort. Excuses always sound reasonable in the moment. I don't have enough time. I'm not ready yet. Other people have it easier. The market's too tough. But every excuse is just a story we tell ourselves to justify inaction. And while stories might protect our pride, they sabotage our potential. You might win the argument with yourself, but you lose the opportunity. And Jim would remind you, you can't hire someone else to do your push-ups. At some point you have to step into ownership and say, no more excuses. If I want better, I must do better. One of the biggest problems with excuses is they become habits. The more you use them, the more they become part of your identity. You start to see yourself as someone who just can't catch a break, or someone who always struggles, or someone who never has the right resources. And that identity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because once you believe your own excuses, you stop looking for solutions. You stop fighting for progress, you settle. But here's the truth. Every successful person has faced limitations. Every achiever has had to deal with time constraints, lack of experience, or lack of support. The difference is they didn't use those as reasons to stop. They used them as reasons to start. You can either let your situation become your excuse or your reason to rise. That choice will define the rest of your life. Discipline is the antidote to excuses. When you develop the habit of doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel, you build internal strength. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop needing ideal conditions. You become someone who shows up, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. And that consistency compounds. Over time, it creates results that no excuse ever could. One way to eliminate excuses is to raise your standards. If you keep telling yourself you're doing your best while falling short of your goals, it might be time to redefine what your best really means. Jim Rohn would say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. That doesn't mean beating yourself up. It means leveling up. It means expecting more from yourself and being willing to demand that your actions match your ambition. Another strategy is to shorten the time between intention and action. When you catch yourself saying, I'll do it tomorrow, shrink the window, do 5 minutes of it now. When you say, I don't know how, take one step toward learning. When you think, I don't feel ready, remind yourself that readiness is built through doing. Every excuse has a counteraction, and success belongs to those who act. Accountability can also help you break the excuse cycle. Tell someone your goal, share your deadline, Let them challenge you when you start slipping into excuses. Sometimes just knowing someone is watching gives you the extra push to follow through, but ultimately, the strongest accountability comes from within. When you realize your excuses are costing you your dreams, you'll find the energy to overcome them. So when the next excuse shows up, because it will, ask yourself one question. Is this getting me closer to the life I want or further away? That one moment of honesty can break the pattern. Excuses keep you comfortable, but effort moves you forward, and forward is where your future lives. Fear is one of the most common and most powerful blockers of success. Jim Rohn once said, "Fear is a fact, but courage is a choice." Everyone feels fear. It's built into our wiring, but what separates the successful from the stuck is how they respond to it. Fear will knock on your door every time you set a bigger goal, every time you raise your standards, every time you even think about leaving your comfort zone. The question is, do you open the door and let it stay, or do you push forward anyway? Most people don't realize how much fear controls their decisions. It disguises itself in subtle ways. I'm just being realistic. What if I fail? It's probably not the right time. These sound like smart thoughts, but often they're just fear in a suit and tie, sophisticated sounding excuses dressed up as logic. Jim would say, don't let your learning lead to knowledge. Let your learning lead to action. Fear can keep you learning endlessly without ever doing the thing that actually matters, taking action. The truth is, fear often exaggerates. It shows you the worst case scenario, rarely the best case potential. It zooms in on what could go wrong and blinds you to what could go right. Fear says, what if they laugh at you? But never, what if they applaud? It says, what if you fail? But never, what if you fly? Your job isn't to erase fear. That's impossible. Your job is to act in spite of it. That's what builds strength. That's how you grow. Acting despite fear doesn't mean being reckless. It means being bold. There's a difference. Boldness says, I know this might not be easy, but I'm doing it anyway. Boldness says, I'll figure it out along the way. Boldness builds momentum, and momentum is one of the greatest weapons you have against fear. Fear loses its grip when you're in motion. That's why action, even small action, is so critical. It breaks the illusion that fear is in control. Many people think they need confidence to start, but Jim Rohn taught that confidence is a reward, not a requirement. Confidence comes after doing, not before. If you wait to feel ready, you'll be waiting a long time. But when you act, even when your hands are shaking, you begin to train your mind. You show yourself that fear isn't fatal, that discomfort isn't the end. You build resilience one uncomfortable moment at a time. Fear of failure is another trap. It tells you that if you don't succeed, it means you're not enough. But failure is feedback. It's data. It's direction. Jim said, failure is not a single cataclysmic event. You don't fail overnight. Instead, failure is a few errors in judgment, repeated every day. That means you're not doomed by one misstep. You're shaped by your consistent response to mistakes. If you can learn from it, it wasn't a loss, it was tuition. Fear also thrives in isolation. When you keep your goals, your doubts, and your struggles to yourself, fear grows stronger. But when you talk about them, when you get support, when you surround yourself with others who face their own fears, you realize you're not alone. And sometimes that's all you need to take the next step. The biggest risk in life isn't taking action and failing. The biggest risk is allowing fear to keep you exactly where you are. Fear will rob you of your potential if you let it. It will dress itself up as safety, but underneath it's just another form of regret waiting to happen. Jim said, we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Facing fear is the pain of discipline. Letting it rule you, that's the pain of regret. So every time fear speaks up, listen, but don't obey. Acknowledge it, but don't let it decide. Because if you push through fear once, it gets smaller the next time. And eventually, you realize it was never as big as you thought. A clear and compelling vision is the foundation for a meaningful and successful life. Jim Rohn often said, if the promise is clear, the price is easy. Without a vision, life becomes reactive instead of intentional. You wake up, go through the motions, and hope things improve. But hope is not a strategy. Clarity is. Vision gives you a target, a direction, a reason to act even when motivation fades. It becomes your internal compass, guiding decisions, filtering distractions, and pulling you forward through challenges. People without a vision drift. They wander. They work hard but go nowhere. They stay busy but not productive. When you lack vision, everything feels urgent but nothing feels important. You get caught in the trap of short-term thinking, solving today's problems while ignoring tomorrow's potential. Jim would call that majoring in minor things. That's what happens when there's no blueprint for your life, just scattered effort with no unified purpose. Vision brings discipline. When you know where you're going, you start living by design, not by default. You say no to what doesn't serve the bigger picture. You stop chasing everything and start focusing on what truly matters. Your time becomes more valuable. Your decisions become more strategic. You spend less time second-guessing and more time building. With a clear vision, even failure becomes directional. It's not defeat, it's data. You learn, you adjust, you keep moving forward. A powerful vision doesn't have to be grand at first, it just has to be yours. It's not about impressing others, it's about inspiring yourself. What kind of person do you want to become? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? What kind of life do you want to live? Write it down, get specific, paint the picture in your mind so clearly that it starts pulling you toward it. Jim Rohn used to say, the best motivation is self-motivation, and vision is what activates it. The beauty of vision is that it creates alignment. Your goals, your habits, your relationships, even your environment, they all start shifting to match the future you're committed to. You attract what you focus on. If you walk through life with vague intentions, you'll get vague results. But when your direction is firm, your life starts to organize itself around that aim. Opportunities show up. People appear. Resources come into view, not because they weren't there before, but because now you're finally tuned in. Vision also sustains you through the valleys. There will be setbacks. There will be days when the effort feels unrewarded. But vision gives pain a purpose. It helps you endure temporary sacrifice for long-term gain. Without it, discomfort feels pointless. With it, discomfort becomes an investment. That shift in mindset can make all the difference between giving up and going the distance. Another secret of vision is that it evolves. You don't have to have it all figured out today, but you do need a starting point. Begin with what excites you, what challenges you, what matters to you, and as you grow, so will your vision. Don't be afraid to revisit and revise it. Life changes, you change, but as long as you're moving with intention, you're moving in the right direction. Jim often reminded people, set the kind of goals that will make something of you to achieve them. That's what vision does. It stretches you. It demands more of you. It shapes your character. Because success isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about who you become along the way. And vision is what makes that journey possible. Not just with purpose, but with power. Not just with movement, but with meaning. The path to success is rarely blocked by outside forces. It's most often blocked from within. The habits of procrastination, blame, poor associations, excuses, fear, and lack of vision can quietly sabotage even the most talented among us. But the moment you take full responsibility, choose discipline over distraction, and surround yourself with growth-minded people, everything begins to shift. When you face fear with action and replace excuses with effort, you unlock the momentum needed to move forward. And when you create a clear, compelling vision for your life, you finally give your actions direction and your journey meaning. As Jim Rohn taught, success is something you attract by the person you become, and eliminating these 7 blockers is how you begin that transformation.